The Stanford prison experiment conducted by Philip Zimbardo at Stanford University in 1971 was originally set out to be another experiment to learn about obedience and social roles. The goal of the study was to look at how social norms and social conventions may have influenced behavior of participants who were assigned to play prisoners and guards. The basic summary, which is pretty widely known, was that the subjects assigned to play prisoners and guards got very caught up in their roles, and the experiment was forced to be stopped early as to not let things get completely out of control. The experiment began by placing ads around about a need for male college students that would be paid $15 a day to participate in a psychological study for 1 to 2 weeks. These ads got over 70 applicants who were then interviewed and background checked to be left with a sample of 24 students from the U.S. and Canada who all were intelligent, healthy, middle-class males. This group of males was then divided into prisoners and guards by a flip of a coin. Next, the experimenters transformed the basement of the Stanford Psychology Department building into a prison, replacing doors to lab rooms with specially made doors with steel bars and cell numbers. The experiment was now ready to begin. The prisoners were each arrested and brought to the Stanford County Jail. When they arrived there, they were told the severity of their crime and about their new status as prisoners. The prisoners were then stripped naked and sprayed down to convey the belief that they may have germs or lice. There were many ways the prisoners were treated that were set to make them feel emasculated, wearing smock dresses, wearing a chain around their ankle, and being called only by an ID number. As for the guards, they were dressed in all khaki uniforms, wearing whistles around their necks, sunglasses over their eyes, and working in groups of 3 for 8-hour shifts. There were 9 guards and 9 prisoners. The remainders from the sample of 24 were on call just in case they were needed. When the experiment truly began, it was clear that both the prisoners and the guards were trying to get a feel of their roles, waking the prisoners up at 2 a.m. to do counts, which were a way for the prisoners to get to know their ID numbers. In the beginning, prisoners were not taking these counts too seriously and still trying to assert their independence. The guards at first were also unsure how to assert authority. In the beginning, push-ups were often used as forms of punishment when the prisoners were giving the guards attitudes or failing to comply. This led to one of the guards even stepping on the prisoner's back while he was doing push-ups, as well as making fellow prisoners step on each other's backs. The second day began with a large rebellion from the prisoners, ripping the numbers off their uniforms and stockings off their head. They barricaded themselves in their cells using furniture. What the guards did in return was even more shocking. Began by calling for backup. The guards decided to fight force with even more force. These guards sprayed the prisoners with fire extinguishers and broke into their cells. They stripped the prisoners naked, took their beds, and put the leaders of the rebellion in solitary confinement or the hole. They were harassing and intimidating the prisoners greatly. What began to occur next in the experiment is what made Zimbardo's experiment so psychologically famous and important. With the lack of numbers of guards compared to the number of prisoners, they knew they could not keep up with the physical tactics of punishment, so they began to turn for more psychological forms. The guards decided to break the bonds between prisoners by giving some privileges while others did not get the same. They gave some of them their clothes and beds back and allowed them to eat in front of other prisoners who temporarily lost their privileges to eat. The rebellions led to all of this happening because the guards began to see prisoners as troublemakers who were out to get them. Their psychological tactics did work, turning prisoners against one another and thinking that others were informing on one another. Less than 36 hours into the experiment, the first prisoner had to be released, suffering from acute emotional disturbance, disorganized thinking, uncontrollable crying, and rage. The next step of the experiment was the invitation of a priest into the jail who spoke to the prisoners and told them the only way to get out was to get a lawyer. He volunteered to contact some of their parents to get them legal help. The next day, they had a parole board come in, to which a majority of the prisoners told that they would forfeit their pay for the experiment if they were to be paroled. The thing that was really amazing was that after the parole hearing, each prisoner went back to their cells despite the fact that they could have just quit the experiment right then and there. The experiment ended when the priest had contacted the parents of the prisoners, like he said he would, and the parents were asking to contact lawyers to get their sons out of prison. They called a lawyer who interviewed the prisoners, knowing it was an experiment. This is when they decided to end the experiment. Dr. Zimbardo said he ended the experiment early for 2 main reasons. One of these was the harsh treatments of the guards when they believed the cameras were off or the experimenters were not watching. This occurred mainly in the middle of the night. The second reason the experiment was ended was that when Dr. Christina Maslach, also from Stanford, was brought in, she strongly objected to what was occurring when she saw the prisoners being marched on a toilet run, bags over their heads, legs chained together, hands on each other's shoulders. Out of 50 or more outsiders who had seen the prison and was occurring, Christina Maslach was the only one who ever questioned it.
I had really thought that I was incapable of this kind of behavior. I was surprised, I was dismayed to find out that I could really be a